Hey guys! I am going to review the series, the Young Elite series, sorry. So I took about 3 weeks to read the whole series because there's 3 books in it, and it is amazing. I kind of had an feeling about it from the beginning because my students were recommending it to me, but it was the students who read Divergent and like loved Divergent, and I've always been kind of like, not so into Divergent. But I subscribe to Junior Library Guild with my library, and we just got in the last book, The Midnight Star. So, because this one looked really, really good, so I tracked down the second one, and I had to read the first one as an ebook because another student had it checked out. So, the author is Marie Lu, and if you remember when I did my Gemina review, the drawings in it are by Marie Lu. So I kind of looked her up, and I was still kind of iffy, like, I don't know how I feel about starting this series, but I'm going to give it a chance. So I read the first one, which is called The Young Elites. And it is about this girl. It's not really like a post-apocalyptic dystopia, but it's set, there's a map. There's a map in the books. It is set kind of in the 1400s, which I thought was really cool. And there's a map. The first one is in Kenetra. I don't know if you can see it. Kenetra. Kind of in the 1400s. It's kind of a different world because there's different names for days and months and stuff like that. And basically everyone in this world worships the gods. And the gods are like the god of joy, of empathy, the god of death, greed, wisdom, those gods. So 1400s in Kenetra, and it's about a girl whose name is Adelina, which is one of my favorite names. And Adelina has a sister named Violetta, and they live with their dad. And there was this thing called the blood fever, and when the blood fever happened, it only happened to kids. And the kids who went through the blood fever, one of two things happened. They died, or they survived and were marked. And everybody is marked differently. So in Adelina's case, she lost her eye, so she only has one eye, and her hair turned silver. And that's her marking. And because she's marked, she's called a Malfetto. And Malfettos are kind of looked down on in this world. And they are thought to be evil. Kind of like you shouldn't have survived kind of thing. And people are really mean to them and like really ugly with them. So she's a Malfetto, her sister is not. And her dad in the first one wants to marry both of them off, but he knows that he can't do that with Adelina. And so it starts with, it's really cool, the opening scene is her telling you, I'm about to be burned at the stake and killed because I killed my dad. So that's not a spoiler, because her dad realizes that he's never going to marry her off because she's a Malfetto, and her sister Violetta is gorgeous. And the way that Marie Lu describes things, I could completely understand how Adelina felt without ever actually having felt that myself because I'm an only child. So she's not so much jealous of her sister, where she's more, she knows her place. And so she hears her dad trying to kind of sell her off to someone and decides, no, this is not going to happen. And climbs out a window to escape. And her dad catches her. Somehow she discovers that she has these powers that are really cool. She makes illusions. And so the first story is obviously she kills her dad. And then the young elites find her. And the young elites are this group of Malfetto children. I'm assuming they're all like kind of in their teens. They're Malfettos who have these powers that were given to them by the gods, and they each align with certain gods. So when they find Adelina, they kind of help her harness her powers. But the first one, in the first book, the Young Elites are very iffy about Adelina because she aligns with fear and death. And I want to say sorrow, something like that. But basically, they don't trust her because of her alignments with the gods. And basically, she thrives on fear and anger And she's been so angry her whole life that that's kind of how her powers work. So when it's super happy, she can't use so much of her power. But when everyone is afraid and scared and worried or angry, like there's just a lot of hatred around her, she thrives. And so the young elites are kind of like, if we can't get her to use her powers like for good and teach her how to kind of harness them and wield them correctly, this could be really bad. So the first one ends kind of on a sour note for both the young elites and Adelina. And they end up, I don't want to give you a spoiler, but it ends up, they kind of just drift apart, kind of. And so that leads to the second book, which was very dark. The second one is called The Rose Society. And I'm a weirdo, and I really like reading the acknowledgement pages of books. And this one, it's very dark. And Marie Lu in her acknowledgement pages starts with, The Rose Society is the darkest book I've ever written. Taking Adelina down to a place where she not only lets her pain consume herself but consume others was a necessary task, but it was also an emotionally difficult one. Being in the headspace of a villain in training for months at a time meant seeking out the best hearts I know in order to balance out all that negativity. So, Adelina does not have a happy ending, to put it nicely. And this book is dark. If you are one of those people that likes shiny, happy books like Jay Asher, that new book, What Light, don't read this. If you like really happy stories where everything is going to work out, everything's going to be great, don't read this series. It was very dark and it was very hard because when I read books, I get so into it that I start to understand how my characters are feeling. And it was very hard. Like I had to do a lot of what Marie Lu did and kind of take myself out of the book and not let Adelina's feelings overwhelm me. Because she is very dark. And one of my favorite lines in it, I didn't mark it off, but she says, why should I be good? What is the point in being good? Who ever got anywhere by being good? And so you kind of see her spiral. And she just becomes this completely different person than in the first one. Because the first one, she's very afraid. And she goes from this place of fear herself to being feared. So cool. It is the best character development I've ever seen, like amongst the three books. If I ever taught like a creative writing class or some kind of writing class, I would use these books to show character development and growth as a person and growth as a character, because Adelina's growth is insane in this book. She goes from this kind of weak place to something of power and just, it's amazing. It's just, it was beautiful to watch her grow. Where at the same time I was like, don't do it. Don't give in. Just don't do it. Like, when you really want someone to make the right choice, but they're not gonna, that's this one. She does not make the right decisions, but at the same time, they're the right decisions for her and for what she needs to get done. I would not have gone about it the same way she did. But basically, the Rose Society is her society. So she kind of goes against the young elites now for a different reason. And it was really, really cool. It's kind of long. It's about 400 pages, but it didn't feel like it. I think I read it in maybe 5 days, something like that, 5 to 6. But it was just really dark, so I had to take it really slow because she really spirals, and it's really kind of sad to watch how she turns against her friends. I honestly don't know how my high school kids read it, but I loved it. And she meets a boy, obviously, of course, because this is YA and there's always a boy, but she meets a boy who aligns with good, and it's really cool the way they balance each other out, because he wants her to make the good decisions and he wants her to be happy, but She aligns with bad. Can't really go that way. So it was cool. I really liked it. Marie Lu did a beautiful job on this book. And just when I thought this series could not get any better, bam, Midnight Star happened. So cool. This one takes kind of a turn because in the Midnight Star, the Young Elites and the Rose Society have to work together to save the world. Yeah, it's corny and it's cliche and it's done before, but no. This is so cool. The way she brings the elites together, and the way that all of what Adelina has done to her world kind of gets, like, she has to decide about what's important to her and how she wants her life to be. And again, there's not a happy ending, but it does not take the Divergent turn. So if you've read Divergent and you hated the end of that series like I did, it does not go that way. But it has a beautiful ending. It is not a happy ending, but it is a beautiful ending. And Marie Lu does an amazing job. Like, there's one point where Adelina and a few of her people and the Young Elites are traveling somewhere where they're going to meet the place where the gods came to Earth. And it talks about how it's so cold and, they're freezing. And I'm sitting in my library reading and I was freezing myself. Like, I could feel how cold it was for them because of the way that Marie Lu uses her words to describe the setting. I could feel the cold. I could understand the fear they were feeling. I could understand the anxiety of not knowing, is this going to work? Because they don't know. They're kind of going off of a theory and kind of a folk tale and hoping that this actually works to save the world, because if they don't, plus everybody's going to die. So it was really cool. It was really, really cool. Very interesting. I really hope this isn't the end of, I really hope it's not the end of Marie Lu's books, but I hope it's not the end. Like, I would really like it if there were like a spin-off. Like, you know how when there's novellas written about the individual characters later on? That I think would be really cool, because you only get to hear from Adelina and maybe 2 or 3 other characters, but it's always from a far away kind of perspective. I can't remember the perspectives, but the only real perspective you get is Adelina's, and she's the storyteller. So you never kind of hear from a lot of other people, and I think that would be really neat. But it was a beautiful series, great story. I loved it. Definitely 5 out of 5 stars, and I highly recommend it. I've had a book hangover for 2 days. Normally, I start a book either the next day or like after finishing whatever I did. I finished The Midnight Star yesterday, and I haven't been able to start anything else just because I'm still kind of not so much mourning and processing, but I don't really want to leave that world yet, because it was such a cool world to be in and to understand what's going on and to see all that character development and to see how the world changes according to what Adelina does. It's really cool. So yeah, I have not been able to start anything new. I have 2 books sitting in front of me at my desk, and I'm not really ready to move on yet. So we'll see what I read next, but highly recommend the Young Elites series by Marie Lu. Again, the first one is the Young Elites, the second one is the Rose Society, and the third one is the Midnight Star, and you should definitely get them right now because they're really, really good, and I definitely love them and will recommend them to everybody forever. All right, y'all have a good day. Happy Valentine's Day.